is we want to get you out and enjoying being active. And that's what this talk today is all about. So let me talk a little bit about Sherry. I don't know if any of you know Primal Fit downtown, but it's a wonderful place to go and get healthy and stay healthy. Sherry is a Noble alum and a lifelong North Berwick resident. She's certified in the National Academy of Sports Medicine, in personal training, corrective exercise, senior fitness. She's also a nutrition coach, a CrossFit coach, a kettlebell instructor. Are you scared yet? You don't have to. These are all good things you don't have to.
You brought sneakers, right?
And how about this? Rock steady boxing. So, and first aid too. It goes on and on. She's also the owner and the prime instructor, coach or trainer over at Primal Fit down at the Edge. So this is a person we should all get to know, because staying healthy starts with all of us and being active, and that's our goal. This is Stina Brazelton. Stina is co-chair with me of Berwick for a Lifetime, and we're the ones that have put this together with partnership with the library. And our goal is physical fitness and overall fitness. So it starts up here, and then we will bring it to the rest of our body. And Stina heads up a weekly walking group too, and it's so much fun. I had somebody at the dinner the other night, or at the Historical Society, came up and said, I saw your walkers out and they're having so much fun, it just makes me not want to work and just walk with them. And it's true. It's they have a great time. But for now, let's introduce Sherry and have you start your program.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me today. I know the very sensitive place I am in right now between you and lunch. But lunch got you here, I'm sure. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad that I can talk to you today a little bit. This is going to be very informal. I do have some time for questions at the end. I'm going to spend a few minutes on who I am, a little bit about macros, so understanding nutrition, and then we're going to get right into how to plan to succeed with your nutrition. Meal planning, grocery shopping, reading labels, and prepping food. And then a little bit of time on recipes, some of my favorites, and then questions and answer session. But again, if you have a question, raise your hand. I'd really like to keep it informal. So who am I? They told you a little bit about who I am. I am a Noble alum. I graduated in 1992 from Noble. I'm also a North Berwick native. I went away to school and I lived in Portland, Maine, if you want to call that far away. And then I've been back for the last 10 years. I'm a wife, I'm a mom of a 28-year-old. I was a caretaker for the last 10 years. My father, who had Parkinson's disease, he just passed in March. So I understand very much how life gets in the way of the things that you try to do to better yourself. I'm also the #1 auntie. So I don't know if you knew that, if you've seen it in the news, but that right there is Sophie this morning at the gym. She drew that cat and was I'm not sure what this is. She's 6, so she's all about the poses right now when the camera comes out. Education, I only put that up there to say that I've kind of been around the block, even though my professional career for 25 years was in marketing, corporate marketing and talent marketing. I always started with science and fitness, and the body was always a passion of mine. My bachelor's is in neuroscience, and then I went on a business route. The other thing I want to note is I'm a nutrition coach. That's different than a registered dietitian, and that's important. A registered dietitian can tell you, all right, you have high blood pressure or your A1C is here, so therefore you should eat these foods. I cannot do that. But what I can do is help with, once a dietitian maybe has told you that these are the foods you can eat, I can help you how to get those behaviors as part of your everyday life. I can help you with how do you make sure you drink more water, get better sleep. How do you make those things habits, those healthy habits. So that's what a nutrition coach can do. So I'm going to talk to you today about what macros are and why you should care about protein and those things we hear about, the good and the bad carbs and the good and the bad fats. I'm going to talk a lot about all of that. But when it comes down to it, and it will happen because it happens every time I give a talk like this, someone's going to say, I have this thing and what should I eat? I'm not able to do that. So I'll give you other resources if that's what you're needing. As was mentioned, I own Primal Fit right downtown, and my approach is important to me. Again, as a caregiver, as someone who's been in the business world, I've worked the 80-hour weeks. I've been up and down with my own journey with fitness, and that's both with food and with exercise. I'm pragmatic, I'm realistic. So that's the other thing I think that has been helpful, and when I coach people is, I'm not going to shame you for eating that piece of cake, because you know what? My favorite food is a donut. And when I can, Audrey knows this, she spends some time with me, she's in one of the classes at Primal Fit, I will have a donut, and I have no shame about that. I'm not doing it in a closet, I'm doing it out in the open, and I know that that's going to happen. So when we think of a healthy lifestyle, we're going to talk about food today, but there's a lot that goes into a healthy lifestyle. It's food, but it's also how you move, and that's both movement that you do intended. An intended movement would be an exercise class. It would be going for a walk. It would be hopping on a treadmill. And then there's the kind of everyday movement. Are you sitting, what is your job? Are you working at a desk all day, or are you waitressing? Those are very different, unintended, but kind of everyday movements. When you park, are you parking as close as you can to the door, or are you parking at the other end of the parking lot so you can get a few extra steps on your way in? So those are all important too. Also socially, I'm a big advocate that the social health is very important, and I saw this a lot with my dad over his 25 years of having Parkinson's. Social isolation will cause you to have other things that represent it, and it can be physical. So the other thing that I'm a big proponent of is these things. This is excellent, getting together with people, talking to your neighbor, having some sort of a social outlet. It could even be online if you're not able to get out of the house. So let's go to the macros, and I apologize, this is kind of small. The presentation is going to be available to all of you later, but there's 3 major macronutrients, they're called. Who knows them? And I know it's up here, but I don't want to just read to you. So who can tell me what the macronutrients are? And just go ahead and say it. You don't need to raise your hand.
Protein and fat.
Protein and fat are 2, that's right. And what would the third one be? Carbs. We hear so much about carbs, right? Because carbs get this bad rap, and we're going to talk about how they're not really that bad. So carbohydrates are your primary source for energy. So carbohydrates are super important just to keep yourself moving. They have a lot of your fiber is in carbohydrates, and we'll talk about that. Protein. Protein is used in many of the processes that happen inside your body. It also helps your muscles and tendons and ligaments heal. And so eating protein is super important. It's also will spike your metabolic rate, like how you break down foods. So we're going to talk about protein a lot. And fats. So fats are not bad. Fats are actually really good for you, and they support brain health, and they support a lot of functions in the body, hormones, how your nerves work. So healthy fats are super, super important. There are also a number of vitamins, vitamin D being the most important one this time of year, that need fat in order for that dietary vitamin D to absorb into your body. So, and we all know that's important just for our mood. But the type of calories that you're eating, so the type of carbohydrates, the type of fat, and the type of protein is super important. So here's an example of around 2,000, 2,100 calories. On the left-hand side here, we have 3 items, a piece of cake, 1 soda, and a plate of food. But then look at all the food on the right-hand side. That's all sustenance that's filling your tummy. And there can be more food there because there's a lot less of that fat. So protein and carbs are 4 grams of 4 grams of energy or calories per gram of fat. So 1 gram of protein and 1 gram of carbohydrate is 4 calories. 1 gram of protein is 9 calories. So when you start loading, I just said protein, fat, carbohydrates and protein, 1 gram of those is 4 calories. Fat is 9 grams or 9 calories. So you can see where your caloric input gets much, much higher as you start adding in all that fat. And we're going to talk about sugar too, which is in a lot of these foods on the left-hand side, because that also makes you crave those same sorts of foods. So what are some carbohydrates? Talk to me about some healthy carbohydrates. You definitely can't read this. But this is a good resource, because what this is this shows you what you want to eat more of, what you want to eat some of, and what you want to try to stay away from. But let's talk about the more and the some. What do you think some good carbohydrates are? And you can read them right up there. Yep, quinoa, if you can read them. Beans, brown rice. Yep. Fruit. Whole wheat bread is not bad as long as you don't have a gluten intolerance. Yep. So carbohydrates, I like using, a lot of people use ounces for how much food you should have per meal, but everyone is always carrying their hand around. So I like using a reference to your hand. And so 2 cups of carbohydrates is generally a serving. So that would be 2 cupped hands of carbohydrates is generally a serving. What you want to stay away from on the right-hand side, you're going to see things like, I'm sorry, all the yummy stuff could be, but crackers, things that are very processed, soda, juices. So while fruit is good, fruit juice is not so great because often it has added sugar. And we'll talk about reading a label and where you can see that. Next, let's do protein. So if this is a serving of carbohydrate, this right here is a serving of protein. Now, yes, it can be nice and thick, right? A big filet mignon, but we're talking about roughly your hand right here would be what a serving of protein is. And you're looking to have about 2 of those for every major meal as well. So what are some good protein options? Eggs, fish, chicken. Beef isn't bad a couple times a week. Yogurt, especially if it's not flavored. Again, we'll look at food labels, but sometimes yogurt can really have some sugar added in there, so you want to be watching for that.
Seeds like flax seeds.
Yep,
Chia
seeds, nuts. Yep. We generally put those in the eat some for the seeds and nuts because those are also high in fat, but very, very filling for sure. And then last but not least, fats. Your thumb. I know. Your little thumb. I know. It doesn't seem like enough. But even the fats, I would say 1 to 2 servings of this would be a good serving size for your meals. And then you want fat in your snacks as well. So what are some healthy fats?
Olive oil.
Olive oil. We've heard about oils. I've become a big fan of avocado oil. Yeah, it almost tastes like butter, honestly. If you, I've roasted veggies in it, even just last night. And I actually, my husband did it. I was at work. And I actually said, did you put butter on this? I was like, how dare you? And he's like, no, just the avocado oil. So it really is good. Cheese. So your hard cheeses. Yeah, not too much. Yeah, all of this, again, the serving size really matters with the fat. The nuts are going to be listed here. Olives, we've heard a lot about or maybe you've heard a lot about the Mediterranean diet. They really talk about seeds, nuts, olives, oils. But really, this is what they're focused on, is this, healthy fat content. And then vegetables. So when I'm talking to people about how many vegetables they should have, I generally use a fist, and I say you should have 3 to 5. But this is the opposite of what I'm generally coaching for protein, carbs, and fat, where I'm saying, and have no more. With these, I'm saying, and have as many fists as you can, but make sure you at least get 3 fists. I don't know why it is. I love vegetables. I truly do. But still, it's a lot of vegetables. It's a lot of size, like it fills your belly fast to eat as many vegetables as you should be eating. The other important thing with vegetables is eating the rainbow. So we teach our kids this, right? But then you kind of forget it when you get older and you start having, salad. I'm going to add salad. I'm going to add greens. I'm going to add greens. Well, there's different nutrients that are in all of these different foods, and that's really part of why you need the orange, the carrots, you need the beets, you really want to try to be eating the rainbow when it comes to that.
I have a question on avocado, like the actual avocado.
Yes.
So how much of that should you have? Because that's fat, but I think it's considered good fat.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of them are the fat is your thumb. With avocado, who's going to eat less than half an avocado? No one, right? But what you should do is not have half an avocado every time you sit down for a meal. So it shouldn't be your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner. I love avocado with eggs, so I'll have half an avocado with my eggs. Well, then when I have a snack, I'm not sitting there searching for what my fat is. I've had it. Does that make sense? But half an avocado a day is perfectly fine. Yeah. It's good. It's easy to, for sure.
I like it on my salad.
Yeah. It's easy to, for sure. Any other questions? Any other questions about the macros? Okay. All right, so now we're going to switch into how you plan to succeed with eating healthy. And this is where we'll get into the budget piece of it too. So first is meal planning. I am a big proponent of meal planning. If you don't have a plan, you are just setting yourself up to possibly fail. So I like to write down what I'm eating for the week. It can be as elaborate as you need or not, but at least have a plan, especially when you go grocery shopping, right? Create the grocery list and stick to it. How hard is that? We know this. Here's what my planning looks like. And again, I apologize, it's not the best, but I will write in what I'm having for my 3 meals of the day. You'll see that the snacks, I just kind of have that listed on the bottom because I'm not pre-planning my snacks. Even my type A, that's too much. So, but you'll also note in a lot of places, whatever I had for dinner the night before, let's look at the second day, it says egg roll in a bowl. It's my lunch the next day. So I'm a big proponent too of making enough that the next day you can have it for lunch, right? If you don't like leftovers, I have a friend who doesn't like leftovers, and then that might be a different situation. But if you like leftovers, this is definitely the way to do it. to have your lunches planned out. Then from that, I make my shopping list. So on the right-hand side, you see my grocery list. So that keeps me from just going to the grocery store and picking up, oh, I'll probably make this, I'll probably make this, and you don't even have like a plan for it. So then you get home and you potentially don't have the ingredients you need for what you were thinking, and then now you potentially are wasting food. The biggest thing about eating well on a budget is not wasting food. That's the biggest thing out of everything. If you're throwing food away, you're wasting money, period, right? Every single time. So let's talk about grocery shopping. So have a list, plan and execute that list. Try not to shop hungry. We've all heard that too, but it is true because you are going to go to some of those quicker foods if you're shopping hungry. Stick to the outside perimeter of the store. So if you think about how a grocery store is set up, all of the good, wholesome, the dairy section, the meat section, the fruits and vegetables is all on the outside. Everything that can be stored on the inside of the store is processed almost by default because it can be put into a package that can sit on the shelf for weeks and weeks and weeks, right? So really think about sticking to the outside of the store. Purchase in bulk if you can. Watch for sales of chicken and then break that chicken down into different freezer bags and freeze some of it. Canned goods can be done that way too in bulk. Frozen versus fresh. I know often people feel like it's got to be fresh. I'm actually not a proponent of that all the time because of the ease of frozen. Plus, I think sometimes that leads to food waste. So my husband and I did a CSA, which I absolutely love, but we got a half a share. And in order for us to make the most of even half a share of the CSA, we were giving food to my neighbor, we were bringing it in to people at the gym. It's a lot, and being able to process that and freeze it or already have it frozen is super important. I have two other things that I've just recently, one I just recently found and one I've just recently started doing. I love raspberries. Raspberries are my favorite fruit. I don't know if anyone's gotten raspberries like in the last 3 weeks, but wherever they're from, they must take a month or more to get here because literally they hit my refrigerator and they're already brown. So I've started looking for frozen raspberries. Even though I'd rather fresh, I'll just take some of the frozen out or use it in smoothies. The other thing is they now have cubed avocado that's frozen because that's the other thing, right? You cut that thing open, you turn around, next thing you know, it's all brown. It's like, well, it depends what you're using it for, certainly. So I use it sometimes for smoothies and I use it with eggs. It's mushed up anyways. If it was on a salad, I could see where maybe that one, tastes the best. So yeah, no, understood for sure. So yeah, depending on when you're using it. And then in general, you want to minimize prepared foods. This is the budget piece. So if you look at, I put this together, hopefully you can see that a little bit, but basically it shows what does chili cost on that top line? What does it chili cost if you're at a restaurant? What does it cost if you're at the grocery store? And what does it cost if you make it yourself? So anything you can make yourself is going to be better than those pre-prepared foods. Now, are there times when you need those just to like get by? Absolutely. I use a service from Rollingsford called Thrive. I don't know if you've ever been to her cafe over in Rollingsford, but it's excellent. And she does no sugar added. Many of her things are gluten-free. And, it costs what it should for how she makes it. I get a couple of those a week because that's I got out of the gym late and, whatever my husband made at home didn't look good. And so I can grab that meal fast. So absolutely, there's a time for pre-prepared foods, but if you're on a budget, you really want to be trying to plan and make the foods yourself. The salad's probably the craziest one, right? If you think about it, if you eat out, a salad is well over $13 or $14, and you can make it at your house for the fraction of that. So I thought it might be helpful to show you what my grocery list looks like. So obviously sometimes I already have this stuff, but literally this is my grocery list. So I have this list on my phone, and I'm a little type A, you guys are probably noticing that already. I will bold it when we're out. So then when my husband is getting ready for the list, I'll go through the bold, and that's what he gets. But these are the things I always have in the house. These are the, hey, I'm a business owner. My husband has to pick up some slack. These are the things that I always have in my house. And I'm going to show you a few, or talk about a few recipes at the end. And they're all going to use these ingredients. So I just thought it might be helpful to get an image. You know, if you don't know where to start with having kind of a healthy pantry and a healthy kitchen, this would be a good place to start.
Excuse me, we're getting a handout, right?
Yes, yeah. I may have to email it, but.
What's your feeling on organic versus non?
Yeah, great.
When you go in and you get a red pepper, which is one of my husband's favorites, I'm like, and then you read the Dirty Dozen thing, which changes every year, so I'm wondering how it changes unless the way they grow it changes. I mean, it's like $1, $2. It's like ridiculous, the price difference.
I absolutely agree. So the organic, just to level set, organic versus non-organic is really that there's no pesticides and there's no chemicals used in order to grow that food. So obviously, do we want that? Absolutely. I think we've gotten maybe a little crazy about the organic in that now people will say that about everything. I do think fruits and vegetables that don't wash very easily. Unfortunately, a pepper is a good example, is probably the way to go organic. If it's a cucumber where you can peel it, I wouldn't worry so much about organic. That's my take on it. I have no science behind that, but that's, I think.
A way to wash it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a vegetable wash that I use. Yeah, that is really good. It's basically a citrus lemon blend, and you can wash your food with it. It doesn't really rinse off the best. So again, it depends. If you're putting it into a soup or something, I'm big on soups too, then you can use that stuff and throw it in. It's not bad for you, but if you're eating an apple, then you might have a little bit of a lemon taste if you just use the veggie wash. Yeah, of course. Any other questions? All right, reading labels. A couple of things about reading labels. You kind of like organic, but fat, like no fat and fat-free, oftentimes what they've done to process the food in order to make it no fat and fat-free, but also have some taste, is add a lot of sugar or over-processed it. So there's a couple of things you want to look at when you're reading labels. Obviously, maybe you want to look at serving size, right? So especially if you're comparing two, because a lot of companies will do that too. So you'll be able to have a whole cup of this and it says it has 4 grams of fat, but you're like, oh, I'm going to have this instead because it only has 2 grams of fat. Well, oh, that's only a quarter cup, right? So you want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Total calories, fine. The saturated fat and carbs, again, fine. But what I really look for here is this fiber. Fiber's super important, and the added sugar. It's not about sugar because fruits have sugar, right? Fruits are one of the sugariest foods, but it's not that added processed white table sugar. So that's what you're really looking for, is what the added sugar is. And then depending on, again, I'm not a registered dietitian, but depending on any insensitivities you might have, you may also have to be watching for gluten or dairy. The other thing that's super simple is how many ingredients are on the list, right? I do that all the time. I flip it over, and if it's like lines and lines and lines of ingredients and you get to the stuff that you can't pronounce because it starts with an X and it has 5 Ys, and then that's processed, right? And that's not Not to say to never have it, but that shouldn't be a staple in your kitchen.
Okay, so I have Another just quick question
Yeah.
on the sugar and the added sugar. Because I do read labels, and so they'll give a sugar and then an added sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So do they take the sugar that's naturally in it and the added sugar and add it? Should we add it together?
No.
Okay, so how do you read
So
that?
they're saying out of, if it says 12 grams of sugar like this one does, you can't read it, but it says 12 grams of sugar. And then the next line says includes 10 grams of sugar. So you only have 2, you subtract it. Yep. So pre-prepping your meals. So this is the best way to stay on track, is pre-prepping. And that's a picture of me after I've done food prep. I normally do food preps on Sundays. Sometimes I cheat. You'll see that the butternut squash, I think, is in a package. It's already cut up. That is not an economic way to do it, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So hard boiling eggs, chopping those veggies that sit in the crisper, and then a couple weeks later you're like, oh wow, that turned to water. If they're chopped up and they're in a container where you can easily grab them, you can throw them in your eggs, you can throw them in a soup, you can throw them in everything you make. Spaghetti sauce, rather than them, you might be thinking, yeah, I'm going to do that, but then it's extra step when you're sitting there trying to make dinner. Have them ready for you. I'm big about crock pot meat. I always, every Sunday, some sort of meat is in my crock pot. Often it's chicken. I love chicken. So usually I just chicken broth and chicken, and then I shred it. And then I have a big thing of shredded chicken. I can throw it in a salad. I can throw it in anything, right? Make a soup. And then roasted veggies, but cutting the veggies up. Again, even those broccolis and all those things that seem like it doesn't take a lot of time, but if you're anything like me, you look at it, you're halfway through the meal, or maybe the meal's already started, so you're trying to tend something on the stove, and you just don't actually take the extra time to chop the veggies up and throw it in. That's me. On Sundays, I'll also try to do some big batches of stuff. I'll make a few things of overnight oats. I'll make a few things of I don't really do casseroles, but soup. We talked about cooking more food than you need. The other thing that's a big tip for building a habit is connecting it to something you already do. So like drinking your coffee, or for me, it's Sunday mornings. That's just kind of what I do. But keeping it in some sort of a routine will help it become a behavior. So avoiding food waste, like I mentioned, the biggest way to stay on a budget is just to avoid that food waste. So plan before you shop, make a list. Fruits are going to go bad faster if they're out versus in the fridge. Using airtight containers, freezing extras. A big thing I do is just soup. I mean, you can almost, whenever if you have veggies that are about to go, just throw them all in a soup. And then once you've cooked it, you can have that for a few days and it'll be fine. That's my fridge.
You're so organized.
Yeah, this is right after food prep, but
I would never take a picture.
Okay, so we're not looking at my fridge.
yeah.
Do you lose many nutrients in the vegetables that you cut up, or when you cut them up and prepare them?
Yeah, not necessarily the cutting, unless you definitely do when you're taking off like skin, like my example with the cucumber, there's definitely nutrients in the cucumber skin that you're losing, but not by cutting them up. You do a little bit when you start to boil them. Steaming is better. Basically, the crunchier they stay, the less you're losing that nutrient. But absolutely, if you're boiling it, you might be losing it, but not by prepping it. Yeah. So these are pictures, and in a perfect world, I was going to have all these recipes for you, but what I will do is I can send tidbits. The thing is, I don't cook by recipe, so like it's all like in my head. So as I started writing it all down, I was like, I'm not able to say a cup of this, a cup of that. So I thought maybe the picture might like at least spark some, but these are my go-to meals, so I'll just quickly list what they are. The other thing is, one of my favorite quotes that I learned through my training is, protein and fiber in every meal makes losing weight no big deal. And that doesn't mean, many of you are not here about losing weight, but if you are looking to maintain a healthy weight, fiber and protein are your two best friends. Protein is also your best friend if you are healing from a surgery or an injury, because remember when we talked about protein, that's really part of a lot of your body natural processes uses protein. So that's super important to make sure you have a high protein diet. And likely your doctor is telling you that, I hope. Roasted veggies. Cabbage roll soup, so good. It's just cut up cabbage, zucchini and squash, onion, diced tomatoes, and then I generally put some sort of meat in it. My new favorite is the third one over from the top. That is already shredded cabbage or a coleslaw mix. I don't like carrots, so I don't use the coleslaw mix. My shredded chicken that I told you about, a chopped up Pink Lady apple. Oh, so good. And then poppy seed dressing. I use Skinny Girl because there's no added sugar in it. Literally amazing. You want to keep it in the fridge for like at least an hour before you eat it. It softens up the cabbage a lot. One of my favorite snacks is the fourth one over on the top. That's cottage cheese, almond slivers, and blueberries. The next one is egg roll in a bowl. You've probably heard this. This is like one of the most, but again, I just use the cabbage that's already in the package, and then I throw some chicken burger in there, a little bit of soy sauce, or if you're trying to stay away from soy, coconut aminos, which is liquid aminos, it's also called. Yummy. Soup, again, everything in their brother soup. Down here is overnight oats. Love overnight oats. You can make all sorts of different flavors of overnight oats. The second one on the bottom is just showing you that's just the egg roll in the bowl, but I'm having it as a sandwich. I just threw it in a lettuce, in a bib lettuce, in order to make a lettuce wrap. Eggs, and that's on avocado toast with 2 poached eggs on top, and then I needed a little more fiber, so there's the fruit. Smoothie, I love smoothies or shakes, homemade, just a bunch of vegetables, almond, milk, coconut, and then protein pancakes. So protein powder, eggs, and banana is all that's in that pancake. So no oil.
Sherry, so the smoothie, does that replace a meal, or is that like a snack?
I mean, it depends. It depends how big you make it, right? So your meal should be anywhere in general, unless you're on like a restricted diet, your meal should be anywhere from 300 to maybe 450 calories, and your snack should be more around the 150 to 250. So it kind of depends how big you make it.
How about snacking?
Yeah.
Which I am a snacker.
Yep.
So I try to eat healthy snacks, but I think I'm eating too many of them. Should it be like in between breakfast and lunch and then between lunch and dinner, or?
Yeah, that's hard for me to say like definitively without looking. That's hard for me to say definitively too without looking at your food plan. Because grazing is not a bad thing as long as the total calories are not jumping through the roof. But if that's the way you eat, there are many people that do better. One of the first things I ask when I'm working with someone is, how many times a day do you want to eat? Because some people are like, I can hardly sit down and have 3 meals. Okay, we're going to work on 3 meals and what those sizes should be. And some people say, oh, I graze all day. Okay, well, we're going to make you a bunch of little small meals then. And neither of them are bad. I need a lot more information to give you a good answer on that.
Breakfast is just like the worst meal for me.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And that's the most important meal.
It is, and I try really hard. But
Yeah. Is it the types of foods though, or it's the time of day? Yeah.
And I think that probably backs up during the day, and it makes me hungrier because I do try to eat breakfast.
Yeah, it could be. I mean,
Cereal, and I try really hard to do the whole wheat cereal, but not oatmeal.
you're kind of by default doing intermittent fasting, which is a big thing right now, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I wouldn't necessarily be forcing yourself to eat if you're not hungry, as long as you're getting enough nutrients the rest of the day. Yeah. So that is, I don't know how long I took. Hopefully, I'm generally either way too long or I either talk too fast or I talk too much. So any questions?
I got a question. Do you work with people just around eating?
Yes. Yeah, and I do nutritional coaching, which is more about the behaviors. So it's helping you track, it's helping you do some of the things we talked about. So planning your meals. And sometimes, it's just accountability. So it's just having me going, okay, it's Sunday at 5. Did you pre-prep your meals? And then you're like, "Arr." And all day you're thinking, if Sherry's going to reach out to me. I mean, really, that's what I do. But I can do that. I can look over food logs and try to figure out like where might you be missing certain foods. The only thing I can't do, I'll just state again, is I can't give you an actual meal plan. That's a registered dietitian. A question I often get is protein, because you should be having so much protein. Is that what you were going to ask by chance? Yeah.
Well, one of my questions is how you mentioned that protein affects metabolism or something. Like, I don't know if you could tie that in so I understand it a little.
Yeah, so protein basically works with all of the processes in your body, whether it's repairing repairing your muscles that have had damage or what have you. So it just works on those processes that allow your metabolic rate to just burn faster and more within your body, your cells, because it's prepping your cells. Yeah. Yeah, for all those, for pretty much any process in your body is using protein in order to do that. Yeah.
That makes sense. No, you can go.
Are you all set?
I have a few more, but no,
Go ahead, go, because
right.
I just
Well, people-
ask a lot of questions because it's interesting to me, and she's
Yeah.
very, you can understand her. I can understand
Yes.
her.
I can too.
It's simple for me.
Yeah. The inflammation that people talk about.
Yes.
People eat for preventing or subsiding inflammation. I don't understand that either.
Yeah, so when they say inflammation, basically they're talking about cells being irritated. So gluten, for example, makes some people feel bloated or can give their GI tract, can give you indigestion or can give you diarrhea. That's what they're talking about, inflammation. I actually just recently also felt like I noticed in my body that I had a traveling ache and pain. And I wasn't really sure what it was. My knee hurt when I ran, and then it was my ankle, and it wasn't any one event. So I actually just recently cut out both dairy and gluten. I don't know yet kind of what it was, but I do believe it was something in my diet that was not causing it, but certainly not helping it. In order to it kind of wires up those cells when it's inflamed. That's what we mean by inflammation. It's not inflammation like your hands start to swell, but it's more your cells, your internal body starts to be kind of out of balance and unhealthy. Yeah. So I often get, what about these high protein foods? So again, a slide you can't see, but we'll send this around. This tells you some of the main foods and how much protein one serving of that food has. So I think that might be helpful. Also a few high protein combos. Breakfast is another one. People are always like, I don't know what to do for breakfast. The other thing is there are prepared foods that aren't horrible, right? So I figured I'd give you what I personally use. So Naked Whey is a type of protein powder. It uses coconut sugar, which is a more natural than like table sugar. I use that for my shakes and smoothies. Premier Protein has a lot of ingredients on the back. So I am not a huge advocate of it. However, it does have 30 grams of protein and it is good for a good fix. It should not be something you drink every single day, but if you just need something, you get to the end of the day, you're feeling sluggish maybe, or maybe you've been tracking for a week and you need something to start to get it into you while you're trying to figure out how to get more more protein in, that's a good one. Collagen peptides is another good one. Again, be careful of the Premier Protein, but I buy it. I always have it in my refrigerator in case I need it. Oh, you know, the other thing I always have in my refrigerator is those kid pouches of fruit and vegetables. The kid pouches, like my 6-year-old niece drinks, right? But find the ones that have no preservatives and no added sugar. It's just a quick hit of carbohydrates. I use that a lot, like just before I'm gonna work out, I'll have just a little pouch. It's a kid's food, but it's super healthy. And then on the right-hand side is another brand I love, which is RX. They make nut butters, they make bars, very low ingredients. You can see there that bar is egg whites, almonds, cashews, and dates. Dates is a great natural sweetener if you can use dates.
So the fiber proteins, it doesn't taste good if I use it and drink it. Is it some way that it tastes better?
The Premier Protein?
No, the fiber proteins.
Oh, the Vital Proteins? I put it in my coffee. I have 1 scoop a day in my coffee.
Oh, I don't drink coffee.
Tea, anything. I mean, this one's unflavored. So I think they do have flavors, but the Vital Proteins, the one I buy is unflavored.
So I even try the chewables and
Oh.
it doesn't taste good, but I have the powder and it doesn't taste good. So
Yeah, you need to put it, is water all you drink?
yeah, water and almond milk.
Did you try it in almond milk? Yeah.
It doesn't taste good. I even put it in the smoothie. It doesn't taste good.
Really?
So I have to throw out my smoothie then because
Yeah.
I don't do it anymore.
Is it a flavored one? Is it flavored?
No, it is not flavored.
Oh, interesting. I don't know then.
I buy that kind and I don't taste it at all.
Yeah. I mean, I've even put it in my soup before because it's unflavored. I don't taste it. So you're very in tune to it. Yes.
I have 2 questions. One, how much do you put on your plate to eat? And another thing is, it's just the 2 of us now. I'll make something, and I feel like we eat it for days.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know I can freeze it, and I've done that, but I'm wondering, not just getting sick of it, but also if you keep eating the same thing for a couple days, then are you not doing well with?
Yes, good questions. So the plate, so I really go back to your hand size, but when you think about how that would look on a plate, you're gonna have about half of the plate is gonna be veggies, roughly a quarter of your plate is gonna be protein, and about a quarter of your plate is going to be carbohydrates, so your rice, and then the fat is going to be likely the oil that you use to cook it, or you know, a little thing of avocado on top, something like that. So roughly half your plate vegetables, quarter and a quarter for your carbs and your protein. As far as eating the same things, I mean, you definitely get more nutrients. That's less about the macronutrients and more about your micronutrients. So your vitamins, and that's why we say eat the rainbow. So yeah, it's not great to eat the same exact meal every single day, but it's not so much from a macronutrient standpoint that I'd be worried. It's more about if you could even change up the veggies in order to have different micronutrients, it would be good. Yeah, the only thing I can think of for that, because I could see where that would be a problem, is trying to think if there are things that you could then turn into something else, right? So like you have you roast the veggies, you eat that normal for the first meal. The next meal, you put it in a sauce and it goes on top of some pasta, you know, so now it's a tomato sauce, but you used up your veggies rather than just having the veggies, you know what I mean? Same thing with your meats. You could turn it into something else. Then now it's an omelet. So you're having an omelet and you're putting some of the chicken or the steak in your omelet. Maybe try to be creative like that with the leftovers. Takes a little extra thinking, but.
Yeah, so if you are a vegetarian, how can you add more protein to your diet?
Yeah, if you're vegetarian, you're getting most of your protein through fish?
No.
No. So nuts, beans. Yeah. Yeah.
So 3 times a day, Vin?
Yeah, I mean,
Because you need.
yeah, I mean, this would be where if you're having trouble with that, I really would talk to a registered dietitian about what you should be specifically eating. But yeah, all those other non-meat things on that slide are really beans. Most, yep, chickpeas. Most vegetarians do have some sort of a supplement. Let's see if we can get back to that. Especially if you're not eating fish. Are you eating eggs?
Yes, I
Yep. Okay, so eggs.
I just added eggs. I was not eating.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I added it again.
yeah. But those lentils, beans,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, stuff like that.
Cottage cheese has a lot of fat though, and it's that saturated fat. Because
Um,
I went to the store to buy it, and then when I read so much saturated fat, I was a little bit afraid to get it.
Yeah, you definitely want to look at it. I generally get the skim milk cottage cheese, so you can get the full, or just like milk, you can get different levels of cottage cheese. Yep. Yep. Any other questions? Yes.
As far as lettuces go or
Yeah.
greens, when you're making a salad, what are the couple that are the best? Like we tend to use iceberg or romaine heart.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, the best is that you're getting some different ones. It's back to that rainbow, right? So iceberg gets a bad rap, but honestly, if it's allowing you to eat lettuce, like eat iceberg. Like I eat almost solely romaine, but it's because I love the taste of romaine lettuce. But you know, there's a reason why there's like the spring mix, because you know, having kind of a variety in that way is definitely good. But I wouldn't get too worried about zoning in just on one lettuce. If you're eating it, you're doing well. Do you know what I mean? Like, because with veggies, that's the trick, is actually consuming them in high quantities, very high quantities. Yeah, there's certain nutrients that are in dark leafy, yep, vegetables. And yes.
Quick question, maybe too medical, but eggs, what is the word on eggs now?
Changes all the time.
It changes all the time,
It
yeah.
does. No, you can't.
Meat for cholesterol, you mean? Yeah, I mean, if you, and this is true with everything, so eggs is a good example, but like if you have any sort of imbalance in your body, cholesterol being one of them, you want to watch those foods for sure. But, you know, salt is another one. I have really low blood pressure. I salt all my food, like salt, 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 salt. And right, I know I am. I know I'm lucky, but you know, other people can't do that. Cholesterol is going to be the same way. You're going to want to watch that. I'm not a big, and you know, this is not a scientific statement. This is a Sherry statement, but I'm not a big. I don't buy into this like all or nothing thing. So I don't really buy into like you never eat this or you always have to eat this. I really think it's about the variety. It's about enjoying your food, eating in moderation, kind of the things I said at the beginning, getting in some movement as well. You know, every once in a while having that donut. That's what I think. So I would say the same about eggs. Like even when the research starts to say, you know, eggs are bad for you, I don't buy it. The only thing that I buy as being evil is sugar, table sugar. I 100% think that was a manufactured ingredient by food corporations in order to make us crave more of their stuff. That's the only thing I would ever say. If I could not have again, it would be fake sugar. But when it comes to all the other things, I think moderation is key. Yeah.
And what do you think about fake sugar? There are so many fake sugar products,
Yeah.
and it seems like they all end up being
Bad for you.
cancerous.
Yeah,
I've
right?
gotten to the point where it's like I'd rather put some sugar in something, and at least I know what it is.
Yeah. It's a good, it's, Yeah, it's a really, really good point. It's a good point. I mean, I can tell you what I do. I try to stick to fruit, maple syrup, coconut sugar, things that are at least stevia, which is a plant. Rather agave, yeah, I just try to stick to it. But you're absolutely correct. There's always research coming out about this or that.
I have a question. When you crock pot, so I have a crock pot and I use it, but you said you put chicken in it, so that kind of intrigues me because the chicken's got the skin on it, the bones.
Oh, I don't mean a full chicken. I mean like chicken breast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that would, in the crock pot.
Yeah, I do chicken broth, a full thing of chicken broth, and I put 3 to 4 chicken breasts in there. I leave it in there for 6 hours on low, and then by the time it's done, it's just pulling apart. And then I either add the veggies in, diced tomatoes, veggies to make a soup, or I pull the chicken out and use that for the rest of the week to throw it into this or that.
Going, she has to use the chicken breast. She just cannot be throwing in a
Yeah,
whole chicken.
I do, you know.
Thinking about that afterwards, and I'm like,
Yeah, with chicken. Yeah, no, with chicken broth.
chicken.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So chicken broth, how much of that?
I use just because I use a whole container, especially if I'm making a soup. I use a whole container. Sometimes if I'm only doing a couple of breasts, it's just enough to have some moisture in there. Yeah, it doesn't have to be drowning the chicken. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I'm sorry I've been late, but you might have covered this issue, but I was wondering about the dirty dozen that you hear about, and is it best to avoid those foods? Because I feel like, all this pesticide and residue, I'm just not going to eat strawberries in the winter. I'm just going to buy organic if I can afford it in the summer. So then you forgo like strawberries and the highest pesticide foods, which are actually good for you, but bad if you get all this pesticide.
Yeah. So we did talk a little bit about that, but quickly, I think that obviously pesticides are bad, and there's science behind that list, right? That's not me. I think there's certain things that you don't ever really need to buy organic. And the example I used was a cucumber, because you can just take the skin off the cucumber and still eat the cucumber. But there are probably things where it does make sense to buy organic if you're worried about the pesticides. And your example of the strawberries is probably one. You can't really scrub a strawberry. But there are also veggie washes, veggie and fruit washes that you can use that help to get rid of some of the pesticides. But yeah, it's an interesting little circle we've created ourselves, right? Yeah. So it's not a definitive answer, but there's something to it, I'm sure.
So what about the frozen fruit that you buy? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, just, read the labels, make sure it's been washed first, that sort of thing. But I mean, I'm a big proponent of frozen fruit. I buy Wyman's. That actually was on my list all the time, Wyman's frozen berries, and throw that in smoothies and what have you. I don't think that's considered organic. I don't know. I don't know what I'm, who knows what else I'm getting in that, but.
I think it would say it on the back if you read, like it would say organic strawberries.
Yeah.
Because the only thing with strawberries frozen, I'd probably do it too long in the microwave. They do get really mushy.
Yeah, right. If you're using it for fresh fruit. Yeah. Yes.
Do you have either a recipe or a store-bought pasta sauce or that you promote or like?
Yeah, so I love Primal Kitchen brands of everything. So it's no added sugar. It tastes great. They have sauces, marinades, and tomato sauce. So I'm a big fan of that. Also, making your own is not that hard, right? Diced tomatoes, that's the other thing. I have tons and tons and tons of cans of diced tomatoes in my refrigerator. So it's a diced tomatoes, a thing of tomato paste, and then I'll usually add veggies, so this extra veggies and meat, and then you've got your own sauce. And it's no harder. No. I just use Hunt's canned diced tomatoes, yeah. I mean, you could do that. That's probably even better, but no.
Easy recipe is, I had to do for Christmas, and I hate to cook. So for Christmas, we had to do make it, bake it, sow it, or grow it. And so I made my own spaghetti sauce, and I looked up online the Godfather's tomato sauce. There's like 3 ingredients in it. It was delicious. Everybody loved it.
So you bought it or you made it?
No, I made it.
Okay.
And
Godfather's
it's the Godfather's tomato sauce. And
Okay.
you look up, I think there's like 3 or 4 ingredients to it. It took me like, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour to make it. Be careful, they do ask you to add sugar, and I did not. So and you can experiment with it, but yeah, I do not enjoy cooking at all, but I got it was a Christmas thing, so I had to think of something, so I
had
just
to.
I just looked it up online, and everybody went crazy
And
over it.
Awesome.
I put some books out on the food table to give you ideas of different resources we have here or within the Mills Consortium. If you want to find books on any topic of cooking, just come in. We'll find some good books for you. But we have a nice set here, and some of them are brand new and really fun to read and look at beautiful pictures and all. So there's resources at your library. Well, thank you so much, Sherry.
You're welcome.
I've never
I
heard of
am
it
so
before.
excited to maybe get a couple of printouts and maybe people can pick up here.
Yep.